Y'all, wow. I'm literally on here and I don't even, my lash fell off. Hold on. The way I'm feeling, the things I say, all just happen. Pass my way. What can I do to make you stay? I know it's getting late, but girl, I don't want you to leave. You tell me you're just not the type. You wanna do this right. I'm not trying to say I don't. Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Chelsea if you're new, and if you're not new, then welcome back. Okay, so as you guys can see, we have a whole new setup going on. I know I've been gone for a long time. We'll talk about that in another video. But today, I want to kick off a brand new series on my channel called Finance Fridays. What is Finance Fridays? So what I wrote down here is Finance Fridays is a YouTube series dedicated to educating young single women like myself, and maybe you if you're watching this, on the importance of preparing their finances, number one, and setting themselves up for generational wealth by sharing what I've learned and am learning along the way. So, as you can see by the title of today's video, we're going to be talking about all things emergency funds, okay? Leave a comment down below if you know what an emergency fund is or what you think it may be, okay? One, I'm gonna tell you what an emergency fund is not. It is not an opportunity for you to move money from your savings to your checking to pay off some expense that you really didn't need, right? So those new shoes, that new bag, trying to play catch up. No, I'm sorry, sweetie. It's just not giving, okay? We don't use our emergency fund for those things, all right? However, an emergency fund is if you find yourself with a flat tire, you need to get new brakes, AKA me, okay? If you are, you lost your job and you need to, move some money over to help you with your daily living expenses or your monthly living expenses, that is what an emergency fund is for, okay? So I want you to know the difference between what it is not and what it is, because when you understand the purpose of a thing, then it helps you to properly bear the fruit of that thing, right? If you know the purpose of a plant, right? If you know where it's supposed to be located, how you're supposed to manage it, how much water it needs, how much sunlight it needs, then you can properly know where to place it within your household. You're not going to put a plant in your closet, okay? You're not gonna just sit it in your bathroom, unless it's an artificial plant, because we do those these days, all right? But if it's a real plant, you wanna make sure it has the soil that it needs, the amount of water that it needs, the amount of sunlight that it needs. You want to make sure that it's in the right destination, okay? So that way it can flourish and fulfill its purpose. In the same way, your emergency fund needs to be in the proper destination, needs to have the right amount of care, maintenance, checking on, and all of that. So it can flourish and do what it needs to do, okay? So let's look up what the definition of an emergency fund is. I'm a definitions girl. I love to look up definitions. I love understanding the meaning of words. I think that they play a huge part in my life and in life in general. When you understand the meaning of a thing, you're less likely to dismiss it. You're less like, you pay more attention and you're able to really understand the power and the impact that has, okay? Definitions are important. I know we live in an age and a generation and a society where definitions are not like definite, but I believe that they're still important today. So let's look it up. Emergency fund. An emergency fund is a cash reserve that's specifically set aside for unplanned expenses or financial emergencies. Some common examples include car repairs, home repairs, medical bills, or a loss of income. You guys, trust me when I tell you, we are coming up on some times financially and in this industry or economy rather, where it's going to be important that you save your money. It's going to be important that you have an emergency fund set aside, okay? We learned this in 2020 when the pandemic first hit, that we are not guaranteed a spot in our jobs. We are not guaranteed a spot in our apartment complexes. We are not guaranteed any of those things as much as we thought, as much as we signed the dotted line, as much as we paid that deposit. Those things do not matter, okay? Because when things happen in this world, it affects everybody. So I want you guys to be prepared. Again, ladies, I want you to set yourself up financially. Not because you're waiting on marriage, not because you're waiting on some man to come and take care of you. That's great, that's cool, that's your business, okay? But you want to make sure that you are able to care for yourself, okay? All right, next on this topic, where is an emergency fund located? Remember I said that destination is important. If things are placed in the right destination, baby, that's just one more opportunity that it has to flourish and to grow. So I want to talk a little bit about high yield savings account and external savings accounts, okay? Now they're kind of the same when I mean external, meaning outside of the account that you use for your checking and your everyday, okay? And I'm going to talk a little bit more about it in depth in the next chapter, which if you look at the bottom of the screen, you can see chapters for this video. So if you want to skip around, I highly don't encourage it, but if you want to, you're more than welcome to. Emergency fund locations, high yield savings account. Basically, that is an external account that is separate from your regular checking account. However, it yields a greater interest rate when it comes to your annual, like, how do I want to say it? Your annual interest rate. So how much money you earn on that account. So with a high yield savings account, the reason it's high yield is because when you deposit your money in there, every year that it's in there, you earn a certain percentage of interest in addition to the money that's in there. So for example, if I deposit $50 and my annual interest rate is like, say 50%, at the end of that year, 0.50 or 0.50% rather. So 0.50 of that will be added to that account. So let's calculate that. Okay, I am a math girl as well, so numbers do no longer scare me. Okay, so we put 50. I don't know if you guys can see that because the light is a little. All right, we got 50. You're gonna multiply by 0.50, and I'm gonna try to do like a little edit thing where you guys can see me. So 0.50 is 25. Right? So half of 50 is 25. So 50 plus 25 is what? $75. That means at the end of the year, though I only put $50 in there, I get 75. Who doesn't want that, right? You're making money on saving money, okay? We love that, right? Because generally speaking, a lot of your regular checking accounts, when you have your savings connected to it, one, it's a bad idea if you're trying to build an emergency fund because we are so prone to just move the money over and just switch and flip and flop, okay? You want to make sure it's in a separate account where you don't have as much of access to it, right? You still want to be able to access it in an emergency, but you don't want it to be so easy for you to access that you're not able to save anything, okay? So definitely look into high yield savings accounts, any type of external account where it's not connected to your regular checking. So if you bank with Chase, right, for your checking account, then you might want to get a Wells Fargo savings account, right? Because then it's not in the same account. You're still able to access it because Wells Fargo and Chase are both easily accessible banks, right? But you're able to protect yourself if you know your habits. Knowing your habits. We're going to get into that as we continue these Finance Friday series. But if you know yourself, you know that, yes, sis, I need an external account. I cannot have my money with my check-in, okay? All right. Now, let's talk about how to access the money when the time comes. So obviously, like I mentioned before, the purpose of an emergency fund is to be able to access it in the event of emergencies, right? Now, with that, do come penalties. So like, as I mentioned before, if you have a high yield savings account or some form of external account, there may be penalties to you retrieving that money before a certain time period. A lot of times we hear about this when it comes to like your IRAs, your Roth IRAs, your I think it's SEP IRAs for entrepreneurs, self-employed. Any type of retirement accounts, there are penalties when you remove that money prior to the age limit that they give you. So you always want to make sure you're reading the fine print as it relates to any contracts that you sign, any bank accounts that you open up, anything like that, because it's the fine print, and you don't want to find yourself in a situation where you put in, say, $1,000 and you're only able to, like, you're charged $150 on top of that to take that money out, and you really needed that full $1,000 without any extra charges, if that makes sense, okay? So definitely read the fine print when it comes to learning when you're able to retrieve that money, things like that. I'm gonna talk a little bit about my journey in the next chapter as it relates to me building my own emergency fund and where I am and all those things that come with that. So let's get into that. So you may be asking me, Chelsea, where is this coming from? How did you get into having an emergency fund? Like, where did you learn all of this from? I'm glad you asked. So for me, I'm currently on a debt freedom journey. Woohoo! Yes, I'm on a debt freedom journey with Dave Ramsey, okay? He is absolutely phenomenal. If you haven't heard of him, look him up. I'm gonna put him somewhere right here so you guys can check it out. But the Dave Ramsey Financial Peace University is what I'm currently on by way of Transformation Church. So Transformation Church recently did a giveaway during they're currently in a finance series. And they did a giveaway where they gave, I think, 1 year free of the Financial Peace University by Dave Ramsey. And all you had to do is insert this code and you had access to it. So I did that. I have my account and I've been doing the lessons, the modules, the courses, as well as like implementing the budgets, the strategies, paying off debt, all of that good stuff, right? So if you are looking to start with building an emergency fund, maybe you're not in debt, but maybe you don't have an emergency fund, then this is a great way to start with the Dave Ramsey program. When it comes to building an emergency fund, you want to start with $1,000. Yes, I said that right, $1,000. Why? Because generally speaking, most of the emergencies that I mentioned previously, such as car repairs, home repairs, medical bills, they're up there in the 4-figure range, okay? And for a lot of us, we may not make 4 figures yet, okay? We may not even make 5 figures yet. However, I definitely think that 1,000 is a great way to start, because say you had to get your brakes done, like I had to get my brakes done maybe about 2 years ago, and it cost me about $800. That's close enough to 1,000, okay? It's not cheap, right? Let's say you had a medical bill, right? It could be $500, but if you have that $1,000, you can cover that and then still have money left over. So I always like to say, start with $1,000, and there are many different ways that you can build that up, right? Don't necessarily give yourself some really long, drawn out like deadline, but also don't try to do it within a week either. I mean, you can if you want to, but you want to like be realistic when it comes to like how often you get paid, other living expenses that you have, things like that. You want to be aggressive with it in the sense of you don't just want to kind of like be like, okay, yeah, I'm saving $1,000, but you barely put any money in that account, or you barely like really try to get $1,000, but you want to be, again, just realistic. So for me, I currently have met my $1,000 emergency fund goal. Whoop, whoop. I'm super excited because when I tell y'all, I have been working to get this for the past 4 months, okay? So I recently got a new job in December of 2021, and from that time onward, God had been talking to me about building an emergency fund, coming out of debt, and I knew that that was the first step that I wanted to take, was having an emergency fund. So what I would do, and this is just my story and my testimony, so you know, don't think that you have to follow the exact steps that I took, because everybody's situation is different. But for me, I was able to deposit $421 into an external account, and which is a high yield savings account. And I did that with every paycheck that I received. Now, to be honest with you, the first couple of months, I kind of overthought it in the sense of I didn't really think about the expenses that I would have coming out, and so I would have to move some money back into my regular checking account to cover certain things. But once I was able to get a rhythm and a pace, baby, I did not play no games. I made sure that my bills were taken care of. I made sure that I wasn't buying anything before I put that money over there. So I treated it as if I was tithing to God. Okay, so me putting that money in that emergency fund was, God, I'm going to trust you with my finances. I'm going to trust you to put this money in this separate account, right? And to not touch it, okay? And that I will allow it to grow, and that it would be, I would reach the goal that I was praying and believing to reach. And I did. So amen for that, okay? So now that I have that account, now my next goal is to build 3 to 6 months of living expenses. So when you have an emergency fund, according to, the gurus, a fully funded emergency fund is when you have, some people say 3 to 6 months of living expenses. Other people say 6 to 12 months of living expenses. I personally believe it's up to you to decide, based on, what God is telling you, and also like what your living expenses looks like. So if you are someone who you may still stay at home, or you may not have a lot of expenses that you have in your monthly living expenses, such as rent, car notes, car insurance, things like that, then you could get away with 3 to 6 months. For those of us who may have more living expenses, or our bills are a lot higher, then 6 to 12 months would be the better bet for us, just because of, whatever your situation is. And for some people, they say 24 to 48 months. Listen, you do what is best for you, but I'm just giving you guys what I'm learning, okay? So right now, my next goal is 3 to 6 months of living expenses now that I've reached that $1,000 goal, okay? Now I'm going to go into the high yield savings versus regular savings a little bit more in depth. So as I mentioned earlier, a regular savings account only gives you that, like, you just put money in there, but you're not making any money on top of that. Again, it's easier access to move money from your checking to your savings, back to your savings, to your checking, all of that, right? With a high yield savings account, it is an external account. You make money on top of the money that you deposit in there. You may have penalties as it relates to retrieving the money too soon or too early, or transferring the funds. I'm going to share with you guys an app that I'm using, and a high yield savings account that I use currently that I absolutely love. The app is called Marcus by Goldman Sachs. Goldman Sachs is a high yield savings account. So this is the app that I have. It is called Marcus by Goldman Sachs. I hope you guys can see that. It has a 4.9 rating. With the app, you can track your spending, make payments, view your rewards. Again, like I said, I mainly use it for my emergency fund. So what I do is I actually set up my direct deposit to automatically deposit a portion of my paycheck into that account. So I don't even see the money when it leaves. That's a tip that I highly recommend for my ladies that get direct deposit, that have a consistent flow of income. Have a percentage of your paycheck automatically deposited into your emergency fund account. You want to create an actual bank account, okay? Don't just put it in your mattress. Don't just sit it on the side. Like, find a bank account that you trust, a bank that goes with the values that you have, that provides everything that you need, and put that money in there, and do it to the point where you don't even recognize that it's coming out, so you don't even miss it. Okay, a lot of times we attach ourselves to our money, meaning we pay attention to we grow attached to it, versus like kind of setting some boundaries. So it's like, if it goes into that account, I'm not stressing, I'm not worried about like how I'm gonna pay my bill. Like, no, I put it over there, I trust God, and that just is what it is, okay? So it'll say, welcome Chelsea, you have $1,000 in your Marcus savings account. It'll tell me my annual percentage yield, which is, when it comes to high yield savings account, that is one thing I do want to note, is that the percentages, you want to pay attention to the percentages, okay? If you're in a regular savings account, your annual percentage yield is going to be like 0.02%. This one was the highest one that I found so far, which is 0.50%. Some of them are 2%, 3%, 6%. It just depends. But again, with that is also dependent upon the amount of money that you have to deposit when you open the account. So for this particular account, I did not have to put anything, I did not have to deposit anything initially, but after a while, obviously you do have to deposit money because that's the purpose of the account. So, you know, do what works best for you. If you're trying to start right now, find an account that you don't have to necessarily put some money into if you don't have it. Or if you do have the money and it's $100, find one that allows you to deposit $100 minimum and it has the best interest rates for you, okay? Now, on to my ladies who I absolutely love, who I found on Instagram. I want to shout out Daisha Kennedy and Mia Ray, okay? So if you follow me on Instagram, which if you aren't, follow me right here. On Instagram, I followed Daisha Kennedy and I was a part of her, I think, Fall Out of Debt Challenge, which was back in December, I believe. And it was like a 45-day challenge, absolutely phenomenal, has a Facebook group and everything. And she really taught us ways on how we can make more money, come out of debt, and like I said, build an emergency fund. And one thing that she has on here is a post that I'm going to like insert here. And she says, where's it at? She says her formula to reaching every big financial goal that she has is breaking them down into small, daily, achievable goals. So $10 per day equals $3,650 after 365 days. $40 a day equates to $14,600 after 365 days. So I love her tips because they are definitely personable, actionable, and it's something that we all can do. It's easy for us to find $10 a day. Okay, some of us spend that on cigarettes if you smoke. Some of us spend that on gas, on food at Chick-fil-A. Okay, $40 a day. If you have a business, it's easy for you to come up with a product that will make you $40 a day. Okay, so there's no excuses. That's what I love about Daisha. She is a single mom of 2. So all my ladies, if you're a single mom and you're like, girl, like I got kids, I got this, I got that, how am I going to build this money? Daisha is a great resource for you because she shows you how to incorporate your daily life of, you know, motherhood. If you're divorced, because she does talk about that on her platform. It's a great resource for you. The other young lady is Miss Mia Ray. I love her. She is the founder of Glamaholic Lifestyle. And I've been following Mia for a while now, and she mentions how to lose $50 a month. So if you go on Instagram and you look under her videos, you can find like all the way down the how to lose $50 a month series. And she basically is talking from her car about, you know, how to, like I mentioned earlier, taking that money and having it automatically deposited and put aside. So for her, it was $50 a month. You know, for women who you may not have a consistent income or you may not make a lot of money right now, but you still want to start building and start working on building your savings, then losing that $50 a month is perfect because $50 in the grand scheme of things is really not a lot when it comes to setting it aside. So you want to do it, again, like I said, to the place where you don't even miss it. You're like, oh, dang, like, and then you look up and you have $600 saved or you have $1,000 saved, okay? So let's say we lose $50 a month, okay? So 50 times 12, that's $600 in a year, right? Now let's say you do $50 and you get paid bi-weekly. So what is that? That's $100 a month, right? That's $1,200 in a year if you do the bi-weekly, right? So if you get paid, you know, $50 out of your paycheck, that's, you know, a gas, that's a meal out, that's something that you can replace for the time being if this is important to you, right? When it comes to Finance Fridays, and building your finances and coming out of debt, it has to be important to you. You have to value it. Going all the way back to the beginning when I talked about definitions, when you understand the meaning of a thing and the definition of a thing, it becomes more valuable to you. So when you understand the meaning of economics, finances, coming out of debt, and what that looks like for you and the generations to come and the family that you will one day have, you are more likely to be more intentional with it, more determined with it, more disciplined with it, okay? Last chapter, when do you start? N-O-W, right now, that's when you start, okay? You don't want to put this off. Like I said earlier, we are coming up in a time where we will have emergencies in life if you're not already experiencing one, right? For me right now, I have family members that I've lost. And so having to buy plane tickets at the last minute, that stuff is not cheap, right? But I have an emergency fund, right? So I can handle that as needed, right? Say your car breaks down, you have an emergency fund to handle those things as needed. We're going to come up against emergencies in life. Some of us quicker than others, right? But regardless, you want to have that money set aside. So when the time comes, you're not looking to a credit card. You're not looking to a title loan place. You're not looking to any of those resources that don't benefit you to handle your bills. You're able to pay in cash. You're able to handle it, and you have no worries. You have no stress, okay? Because for a lot of us, financial stress, it's massive. It can cause depression. It can cause suicidal thoughts. It can get really deep. So I really want you guys to really pay attention to your finances, pay attention to your desires, pay attention to how much money you're saving, what you're doing with your finances, your behaviors, your patterns, right? The ways that you can grow in your finances. So start now, okay? Not later, not next week, right now. What can you do today after this video to start building an emergency fund? Even if it's just researching the bank accounts that you want to invest in, do that today, right? That's one thing you can do today. What if it is moving some money over to an external account today? That's number 2. There's so many things. Find something today that you can do to start building an emergency fund, and let me know in the comments if you have one or not. I want to know, okay? Ways to make extra money. So say you don't have the money to deposit into an emergency fund and you're like, Chelsea, I found the bank account that I want to use, but I just don't have the money. Girl, you better make some extra money. DoorDash, Uber Eats, Uber, Lyft, okay? Like, there's so many things that we could be doing. I drove for DoorDash when I first moved here to LA for like months on end, and I put that money into my savings account. I started off with losing $50 a month, and I would do that every time I drove for DoorDash. Immediately put that money over to the side, okay? If you are an entrepreneur, you create content, okay? Create an ebook, create a graphic, work with a client, like whatever it is you need to do, God will provide a way for you. Like, there's a scripture I'm gonna show y'all. If you don't know by now, I love Jesus, okay? And so I'm always going to talk about him in my videos. I'm always going to share with you the things that I'm learning from him, because he is the one who funds these things for me. He is the one, not even just fund it, he's the one who gives me the vision for it, the creativity for it, the grace to do it, all of those things. So let it be known now, okay? He my ride or die, for real. I think it's Deuteronomy 8:18. And a friend of mine actually sent this to me. If you're watching this, Olivia girl, hey girl. I'm gonna read it in the Message version. No, I'm gonna read it in the Amplified, and then I'm gonna read it in the Message, because I want you guys to really hear this. So again, Deuteronomy 8:18. In the Amplified Classic, it says, "But you shall earnestly remember the Lord your God, for it is he who gives you power to get wealth, that he may establish his covenant, which he swore to your fathers, as it is this day." What I love about that, it says it is God who gives you the power to get wealth, right? So if you're in a place and in a position where you're praying for God to bless your finances, you're praying for God to help you build an emergency fund, you're praying for God to help you come out of debt, he will give you the power to get the extra money to start saving. He will give you the power to get the extra money to start building that emergency fund. He will give you the power to get the money to do what it is you are believing and asking him to do, right? Because why? So that he may establish his covenant. It's not so we could just have money and spend and ball and flex on Instagram. No, we're not doing that over here, okay? Not in this land, All right. We are allowing God to establish the covenant that he has for us, for our generations, for our children, right? Now let's go to the Message version. It says, if you start thinking to yourselves, I did all this and all by myself, I'm rich, it's all mine. Well, think again. Remember that God, your God, gave you the strength to produce all this wealth so as to confirm the covenant that he promised to your ancestors as it is this day. Okay? I want you guys to remember, when you start getting into a place where you're building your emergency fund, you're seeing that $1,000 sitting over to the side, you have your 3 to 6 to 12 month expenses saved up, right? You're coming out of debt. Do not think for 1 second, and I'm telling myself this too, do not think for 1 second that it was just you, that you did it all by yourself. No, baby. God is the one to give you that power to produce the wealth, okay? Always remember that. And I'm going to bookmark that right now, okay? Because that was good. Last one, this is my favorite one, and it ties into the scripture that I just read in Deuteronomy 8:18. Discover your why. Why do you want to be financially free? Why do you want to have an emergency fund? Why do you want to build a savings? Why do you want to care about your finances to begin with? Is it so you can flex on Instagram, so you can prove to people wrong? Is it because you have an idea of how your life should be and you're not there yet and you want to be there? What is your why for financial freedom? What is your why for these things? Discovering your why, again, will help you to stay focused. So in those moments where things are not lining up for you, where you're having these unplanned expenses and you're just like, God, like, what is going on? Just knowing your why will help you to stay focused and to get back into alignment with the will and the plans of God for your life in this area. For me, I remember when I first started this journey last year, and I was having like these unplanned expenses, like thousands of dollars just coming out of my account. And I'm like, yo, like, I just got paid. Like, what is happening? Right? But I had to remember my why. My why is so that I can have money set aside, so in the event of emergency, I can be able to handle it and not look to my credit cards, not look to a title loan or a bank loan or any of those things, but I can pay cash for every single thing that I want, right? My why is I want to be able to pay for and do and live exactly how I envision, or not even just how I envision, but how God has given me vision for my life. I want to be able to do that when, however, where I would want to, okay? I don't want to have any restrictions. So if God tells me go to Italy for a week, if God tells me go give $1,000 or $100,000 to this person, there are no restrictions for me or my family, right? I want to be able to be married and not have debt. I want to be able to have children and they already have a college fund, multiple children, okay? Not just one child, okay? All right? So that is my why. What is your why? You need to sit down, take some time, write it out. I believe in writing things down because when you see it visually and you put it up around you, it keeps you in remembrance, right? Pray, ask God, what is your vision for my finances? What is your vision for my life? What is your vision for insert blank here? What area of your life are you needing vision for? Ask God, write it down. Allow him to give you the strategy, right? Because it says he will give you the power to produce the wealth, right? And then you follow accordingly. Obedience. That's it. A plus B equals C. Okay? Well, guys, that is it for this video. I truly thank you guys for tuning in with me today. Go ahead and hit subscribe if you haven't already. Make sure you share this video with your friend, your coworker. Send it to at least 3 to 5 people, okay? And make sure you comment. I mentioned earlier, if you got to the end of this video, I mentioned earlier some things that I needed you to comment. So go back and comment those, like if you have an emergency fund, if you're building an emergency fund. I'm going to leave all the links down below so you guys can check out Mia Ray, Daisha Kennedy, Dave Ramsey, Marcus by Goldman Sachs, and I think that's it. But I'll leave everything in the description box below, and I will see you guys in my next video. Bye.